Good day and hello, KMSA, and everyone else is joining as guests of Knowledge Management South Africa. My name is Damian Sakur. I'm also the Deputy Chairperson of KMSA, and welcome to today's webinar on the South African Local Government Knowledge Management Toolkit 2025 as part of the Public Service Month alignment. George, sorry, my apologies. Let me start again. Today, we have Jodine Freeman joining us. She's a senior advisor for knowledge management at the South African Local Government Association, commonly known as SALGA. She has over a decade of experience in the public sector, spanning project management, knowledge management, and the implementation of strategic initiatives that drive operational efficiency. She holds an honors degree in development and management and is currently pursuing a master's degree in information science. Yay! Jodine is passionate about knowledge sharing and collaboration, believing these are essential for organizational success and delivering quality services. She has played a pivotal role in shaping and advancing SALGA's knowledge management agenda, notably leading the development of innovative knowledge products, such as the Local Government Knowledge Management Toolkit, the second edition, which empowers municipalities to harness collective knowledge for improved governance and service outcomes. At the heart of our work is a drive to turn strategy into action, bridging the gap between big picture plans and practical solutions. Jodine is committed to equipping local government practitioners with the tools they need to access, share, and apply knowledge in their everyday roles. So yeah, with that, I'd like to hand over to Jodine, who will share a presentation and take us through what she has to share with us on the toolkit. And should you have any questions or comments, feel free to write them down on in your notepad or put them in the chat. And in the last 10-15 minutes of the hour, we will then turn to the Q&A and answer any questions or comments that you have. Thank you again for joining, and Jodine, I hand over to you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you, Damian. Thank you, KMSA, for inviting me to speak on the updated toolkit. It's a day after Heritage Day. It is also a Thursday. So my English bundles, I have about 75% used. There's about 25% left. So if they run out throughout the meeting, I apologize for that. Colleagues, let me just share my screen. I've switched on my video so that you see I'm an actual person. And then I'm going to switch it back off again, and then I'll switch it on when we engage at the end of it. I hope everyone is able to see my screen. I think that's the catchphrase of ever since COVID.
Yes, you can see it, Jodine.
I think, yeah. I have greeted everyone, but let me just formally do it again. Good afternoon, colleagues. It is really a privilege to engage with fellow KM practitioners who understand the importance of knowledge management in driving organizational effectiveness and innovation. So today I'm taking you through the updated toolkit, or the second edition of the Local Government Knowledge Management Toolkit. The approach we took in terms of updating it, what we've learned through the process, and the next steps. So just to indicate to you, Damien has already indicated, I'm from SALGA, the South African Local Government Association, and we derive our mandate from Section 163 of the Constitution, and we play a leading role in the transformation of local government so that they are developmentally oriented. So we play a strategic role in representing the interest of our member municipalities on the one hand, but on the other hand, also making sure that they fulfill their developmental obligations. So you would see the knowledge and information sharing on the far right is one of the pillars in the mandate. And with this, we aim to serve as a custodian of local government intelligence and a knowledge hub for the sector. It's quite a big undertaking, I think, but through small iterative initiatives and steps, we will hopefully get there. So knowledge management is very important to SALGA. We also advocate that to our members, and it's under this umbrella that we were able to undertake this initiative. Okay. I'll just quickly highlight to you the objective of the toolkit. It's not any less than or different from the previous one, but the objective is to provide municipalities with a comprehensive guidance on effectively implementing KM strategies. It's also to provide them with the tools as well as structured approaches that would assist them to develop and implement their own KM plans. It provides actionable steps that they can use to harness and share knowledge that would ultimately enhance their decision-making as well as their operational efficiency. So we're hoping that through this toolkit, municipalities can better capture, use, as well as disseminate knowledge that would eventually lead to them fostering a culture of learning and sharing. So you might ask us why did you update the toolkit, or what informed the update of the toolkit? So the initial toolkit was launched or was disseminated in 2018. And so around 2023, we started pondering with the idea of updating the toolkit. And that was mainly because of the changing landscape. We experienced some change in terms of emerging technologies and techniques. And so we wanted this toolkit to reflect how municipalities can collect and share information in that context. But I think also we didn't anticipate from 2018 the big changes that took place since COVID, the remote work, digital transformation, but also what we see in the sector is increased community engagement. So the way local government is operating has shifted and demanding more from them. So we wanted this toolkit to respond to these kind of changes and these contexts. So I think another factor that we considered was throughout the last 2 years, we've received numerous requests from our member municipalities for either benchmarking, but I think the one that stuck with us the most was a lot of them came to us and said, our council have just resolved that a KM function needs to be established, and we don't know where to start. They have given it to record management. In the meantime, what do we do? What's our next steps? How are we supposed to do this thing? And we are a small group or team, and we thought if 250 something municipalities come with that same request, we wouldn't have enough capacity to support all of them. So we wanted the toolkit also to speak to some of these kind of challenges and questions that were coming from our member municipalities. But I think the final thing that that got us to say that we need to update the toolkit is the research that the University of the Free State and LGCTA conducted in 22-23. And I think Dr. Klute has presented quite extensively on the research and the insights into knowledge management in the local government sector. But one of the key recommendations from that study called on SALGA and its partners to update and implement the KM toolkit in coordination with identified stakeholders. And they gave us a year. So at SALGA, when we are given such an important undertaking, we do take it up. And so we then started the process of updating the toolkit. So this is just the approach that we took. We agreed upfront that We didn't want to sit in a corner as SALGA and establish or determine what we think needs to be included as part of the updates. We want to co-create this updated version with our member municipalities, but also with our relevant stakeholders, so that it is not a SALGA toolkit, but a local government knowledge management toolkit. So we started with the review of content and gap identification. We reviewed the initial toolkit. We reviewed the research from University of Free State and LGCTA, as well as different academic pieces of that was produced specifically on KM in the local government sector. We took all of that, we packaged it into a report. Then we scheduled a co-creation workshop with municipalities and relevant stakeholders. And there in that workshop, we brought this report to them with our findings to gauge whether we are on the right track or not. But I'll go into the detail of the workshops a bit later. We then updated the toolkit. We had another co-creation workshop where we validated the draft toolkit and then leading up then to the design of the toolkit. So the idea with the workshops was that we co-create this toolkit for the sector by the sector. So the initial workshop, we wanted to share the key findings from the content analysis and the gaps that we have identified. But we also wanted to validate these findings to ensure that they are relevant and that they are accurate. I think a lot of what we found is our municipalities are frustrated sometimes because we anticipate or we think we know their realities or we understand their realities. So we wanted to make sure that we are on the right track. We also wanted to gather insights, experiences, and recommendations from municipalities and our other partners to then enhance this toolkit. So it was for us to identify the challenges as well as the emerging needs and to identify improvements to ensure that it is user-friendly, it can be implemented, and it can be adapted to various municipal contexts. So the first workshop took place on the 11th of February. It was virtual, and I've already indicated to you what we did there. So after we presented some of these assumptions, some of our findings, we then had 3 breakaway sessions. We split all our stakeholders, which consisted of municipalities, departments, and entities. I think there was also academic institutions. We then divided them into 3 groups to look at the relevance and the usability of the toolkit, the current toolkit, the 2018 one, the gaps and the emerging needs, and the implementation challenges and the support that's needed. And then from these groups, we then had report back. So the key takeaways from the group was that the toolkit is widely used and practical, but improvements are needed to ensure broader accessibility and implementation support. There was one of the metro municipalities that was represented there. I'm not going to name them, but we were shocked to learn in the session that they were not aware of the toolkit. So that was a challenge. But also AI, virtual reality, and web-based platforms should be incorporated to modernize KM. Case studies and real-world application must be included to illustrate KM effective KM practices. And then SALGA should take a more active role in advocacy, leadership engagement, and institutional capacity building. KM should be recognized as a strategic function with a clear value proposition. And then also the issue of leadership and buy-in. So some of these, the feedback that we got, it's feedback that we can already implement in the toolkit. I think one of them was also, why are you giving us a toolkit with templates that's in PDF? You should give us these things in Word because we need to be able to amend them, edit them to our context. And so those are clear, fixable things. Other things that came out and were not necessarily for the purpose of the toolkit, but it's definitely other initiatives that we need to drive in support of the KM function in local government. So we then went back, we took those inputs with the gaps, and then we updated the toolkit. On the 17th of April, we had another co-creation workshop, and the purpose of this was to validate whether the draft toolkit reflect what our members and stakeholders want this toolkit to reflect. So whether the inputs that they shared with us were incorporated, whether we are on the right track. We had the workshop. Unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of participation from it, but from the workshop, we then circulated the draft toolkit, the content at least, with all the stakeholders, and we requested for inputs. We did receive quite a bit of valuable inputs from the colleagues, and which then led us to produce the toolkit. So colleagues, I must say this is the first time that we are presenting the toolkit. The toolkit has been finalized. So you are this is the first platform where we are going into what this toolkit contains. So there's 4 sections to the toolkit. Section 1 is just getting started. So it looks at what is knowledge management, just the fundamentals. It looks at the core concepts and terminologies, the evolution of KM, relevant theories of KM. So I'm not going to go into the details there. The updates under the section included our municipal practitioners wanted to know the legislation and policy as well as guidelines that supports KM in South Africa. So that is an addition that we've made. We know that there isn't a directive necessarily for local government, but we included the legislation and policies that would assist them. Also understanding the fundamentals. So what is data, information, and knowledge, and why this distinction matters in KM in a municipal context. We also included the future of KM in terms of AI, automation, and technology. We gave them examples on how AI can enhance KM in municipalities, how knowledge managers can use AI. We also included the ethics around that and some considerations for municipal practitioners as well. Organizational culture is one of the big things that came out in our session. So what does a KM enabling culture look like in a municipal context? That is what we included, as well as leadership. So it's also one of the big themes that came out in the sessions. And so we also included key ways that leaders can influence KM. And then briefly, we spoke about KM systems and international standards and how municipalities can apply ISO 30401 in practice. Section 2 looks at the planning, strategy and planning for KM. And the focus with this was really the question from municipalities in terms of where do we start? So what we wanted to include is how do they make a case for KM? And how can they identify partners to build and execute KM with them? How to use municipal data to motivate for KM, and then the move to developing and implementing your KM strategies. We also proposed some KM governance principles to them in a municipal context. And then one of the big questions that we always get is the capacity to deliver KM. So we know that in an ideal world, you're not going to get a KM head with a KM manager, with a KM coordinator, with a KM administrator, with KM champions. So we did at least suggest some functions and roles for them to start off and build on. Then section 3 deals with, it's a short section, deals with implementing KM tools for execution, as well as the role of champions. And section 4 deals with monitoring and measuring KM. So section 3, you can choose the right tool for what you want to achieve. So let's say you want to share knowledge, it will give you at least a few options in terms of if your objective is sharing, if your objective is capturing, there's a few tools that's proposed there. We also outline the role of the KM champions, and why measuring KM is important, how to build a measurement framework. We give some simple KM indicators, and then recognition and incentives for knowledge sharing is also included. So, colleagues, the 2018 toolkit is not outdated. There's nothing wrong with the toolkit. The second edition purely builds on what has already been developed. It builds on so you can use them together. The 2025 toolkit we have not yet launched. Yeah, in terms of the templates, these are the templates that we have created. As I've mentioned earlier, we took the input that the templates needs to be in Word version so that colleagues are able to edit them. So the templates will definitely be shared in Word. And yeah, there's a few after action review, exit interviews, peer assist, knowledge champions, knowledge center. So there's a few templates those are the templates that form part of this toolkit. The lessons that we've learned through this process. The first thing is I think I've already indicated the importance of co-creating for the sector, not to anticipate the what the sector wants or what municipalities want this toolkit to reflect. I think with that, you also need to consider how overburdened our municipal practitioners are. And so it's really finding the balance in terms of their availability and for them to contribute to initiatives like this. I think also to indicate that it's important that there's an iterative and flexible process. We took our time in terms of developing the toolkit. We started in February. We are in October. I don't think it's too long. But we also agreed that this toolkit won't be it won't include everything. So there still needs to be things that will be developed from it. So it needs to be an iterative process. I think the context matters. We've tried as much to include the municipal context in the toolkit. But one thing that we were not able to do is to make an example of different municipal contexts and how KM can be applied to these different municipal contexts. And this is perhaps where future work can get, can inform some of these lessons. Another one is the scope. We would have ideally wanted to cover everything, but we would have been sitting with a toolkit that's 200 pages. So it was such a balancing act, trying to ensure that we have the most important information and still maintaining a reasonable content in terms of the number of pages. In terms of the next steps, colleagues, so as I've indicated, we have just finalized the toolkit. This week we finalized the toolkit. So we are ready to launch the toolkit. The information related to the launch, we will share with the colleagues in due course. So we will be inviting all of the partners and municipalities that participated in the updating process. We are really thankful for their valuable contributions and input. And this is not our toolkit, SALGA's toolkit. It's the toolkit for the sector that was created by the sector. And so the information related to the launch, we will definitely share. Please keep your eyes open to the communication that will be forthcoming. In terms of the call to action, colleagues, I think the first one would be for us to adopt the toolkit. I think I've overstressed that it's not SALGA's toolkit. So we have joint ownership, joint accountability, joint advocacy responsibilities when it comes to this toolkit. Let's champion the toolkit and let's champion knowledge management in the sector. But let's also learn from one another. Let's share with us as SALGA, if you think there's gaps, let's identify and develop new products or shorthands in support of this toolkit. If you identify a gap, let us work together to then see how do we augment or what other resources we can put out in support of this toolkit. I think as I move to closing, Chair, the updated toolkit it's more than a document. It's a mechanism to strengthen knowledge sharing and drive innovation in local government so that we can enhance service delivery. We see now more than ever, municipalities have to deliver more with less. Communities they are involved, they want to be responded to. So municipalities must be able to respond to these needs of communities. So this toolkit is a mechanism to assist municipalities to improve their operational efficiencies. And as KM practitioners and champions, I think in one of our first workshop, Dr. Alan Kluter sponsored the word KM activist. It's our collective responsibility to ensure that this toolkit does not become dormant. It's not just stored on someone's drive. It's not printed and put on the shelf, but it becomes a catalyst for thriving municipalities. So just as knowledge, this toolkit is priceless. There's no price to it. It's free of charge. When it's released, it's for use by the sector. I think just as a final thought, Jay, the toolkit is not the final destination. It's a foundation for us to build on. And as KM practitioners, we have the opportunity to build on the rest. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you very much, Jodine. That was quite insightful, and I do agree with you that it's not the end. It's also not. It's also it's something you can't put a price on, and it's quite awesome that it's also freely available to everyone that wants to access it and use it. Colleagues, feel free to raise your hand if you do have any questions or comments. If your voice is not, if your voice doesn't feel like speaking, you can also put a message in the chat. Jadina, more of a question out of interest from me. Over the years, or it's been a few years now, has there been, or are you able to share any success stories or like you spoke about lessons learned earlier, success stories from municipalities that might not have had a KM program or have not implemented KM that then use the toolkits to then implement a KM strategy or some sort of KM team?
We have seen a few municipalities that have come to us and through various platforms shared with us their journey in terms of establishing KM functions. And establishing KM function doesn't necessarily mean that there's now a unit that was established but they I think the advocacy work in local government is still needed. So you see your metros are doing well in terms of KM. You see the local municipalities, the stronger ones, they're doing well in KM. But we see the smaller ones, the more rural ones coming now, also council resolving that KM needs to be implemented. So we don't necessarily have it documented. We have an initiative where we are trying to do some case studies now in terms of establishing the value of the KM function and certain roles. But what municipalities are sharing with us, we can definitely see the value. But I think one thing to also note is whether there is a functioning KM unit or KM is implemented in municipalities, we are seeing that they are doing knowledge management activities without them knowing that they are doing knowledge management. And then we use that opportunity to tell them, you are actually implementing KM. You must just now institutionalize it, formalize it. So we see them participating in peer learning and peer review with other municipalities and sharing good practices with other municipalities. But we've also gotten to a point where our KM champions that we used to have that still fulfill that role for us when they go to the municipalities, they are now starting to demonstrate the importance of different functions in municipalities talking to one another. And then they come to us and they tell us, by them working together, revenue is now speaking to billing or to the water guys, and so there's efficiencies in that area. So that's how. So, but in terms of systematically tracking it, we haven't necessarily done that. We are busy with an initiative, at least to try and capture some of these success stories and create platforms for them to be shared.
Yeah, that's awesome. I see a question here from Kulani Chauke. It says, thanks for the great work, Jodine. Of the 257 municipalities, how many have functioning KM? I think it might be related to what you just said, but can you the platform again?
We don't have that data. I think the same question was posed in the last KS knowledge sharing program to COCTA. And so there's an initiative that COCTA will be rolling out shortly. I don't want to speak about it. I think it's theirs to speak about. But hopefully through this, we can start gathering some insights in terms of how many functioning KM units is in a municipality. We know that there's the DPSA directive, but there isn't a directive, for local government in terms of implementing KM. So, but it is important data that we have also identified that we need to collect. It is now just the mechanism through which we are going to collect it. And we are hoping that through this initiative that we're going to run with COCTA, we are able to do that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then that brings me to another thought. Okay, I think Kulani wants to add. Kulani can go ahead.
No, go ahead, Chair. I will come after you.
It's related to what you're saying because I'm going to off ramp somewhere else now.
No. But I just wanted to check from an 808 Metro perspective, how active is the KM functions there? And then also maybe you may also want to advise in terms of the structure that is preferred in local government. You talked about the KM governance. If we talk about the typical structure that's preferred, how does it look like for a metro, and how does it look like for an ordinary municipality? Thank you.
Okay. So in terms of the metros are doing very well in terms of KM. I think sometimes I feel like I can learn from them. So City of Tshwane is doing very well. They invited us a few months ago to train their KM champions. They have a good functioning KM unit and running pro KM initiatives. City of Joburg, I recently presented to their KM champions. They are doing well. City of Cape Town has a functioning KM unit. I think eThekwini is on another level. So the metros are doing quite well when it comes to KM. And through the KSP, COCTA has created opportunities for the metros to share their journey, share how they've started their KM units, how they've evolved. And what we also do is when we received, for example, a request from Tzaneen municipality asking us to assist them to the council just resolved that KM needs to be implemented in the municipality. So in such instances, we would take them through KM. We would then partner them with another municipality, with a metro, and tell the metro, let's start from the basics, tell them what are the minimum. But the toolkit also proposes that for you to start, what is the minimum to consider? But I think the second part of the question is, we do not have, that question was asked, we do not have that information, and maybe that's a resource that we can work together and develop with our academics, with our other sector departments and partners on creating proposed structures for different municipal contexts. I think it's relevant and important now in the review of the white paper as well, where certain assumptions are made. And maybe the organizational structure, is also one of the things that's going to change coming out of this white paper, or the way that municipalities are structured. So we are not prescriptive when it comes to that. We offer guidance to municipalities based on the type of municipality, where they are located. We don't want to be prescriptive when it comes to that. I think we need to consider the context. We need to consider also the objective, and then I think you can then build on that. So I think in short, maybe to answer, we don't have that information. We only guide the colleagues when it comes to that, but the toolkit does provide some guidance in terms of the roles, the competencies, as well as I think the skills and the competencies that's required for the function.
Thanks, Jadine. As a comment here from Rita, then Lillian, I'm coming to you. Rita says, thank you for taking us through the inclusive process to update the toolkit. It warms my heart to say that KM is nurtured with such a reusable toolkit. I was wondering about the challenges at local level and especially KM at operational level. Any insights about that? And does the toolkit provide tools to address it?
Oh, that's a very challenging question. I think most of our interactions is with the metros. Now, the metros are having nice to have challenges, if you can call them that, when it comes to KM. I think if I have to speak about generally the challenge is, I don't think that municipalities quite understand yet the importance of KM and the relevance of KM to their work. We know municipalities, they have a service delivery mandate. And if you look at the number of work, the reports and everything that municipalities have to do, they consider still some of them KM as a nice to have. So it is important that that we, as SALGA, as other sector departments, we create advocacy around the importance of KM. And I think to some extent, the leaders are starting to understand that now. But now you need to go then down in terms of then implementing it. So I think the challenges are, firstly, that people don't understand the importance of KM. But I also think, secondly, is in local government, there's a big challenge in terms of people sharing. There's a knowledge hoarding culture that's in local government. So when you want them to share information, they will ask you, are you from AG? Are you here to audit me? Are you, so there's a lot of advocacy work. There's a lot of trust that needs to be built with the sector to understand the value. there's also this concept or this idea that they can't learn from one another. And so we're also trying to debunk that by creating platforms where we're inviting different municipalities to come and share what they are doing so that they can learn from one another, but voluntarily so that the process is open and efficient. But I think that the challenges that we're having in the sector is also once you also get people to understand the value of KM, understand it's now to resource it, and we understand the fiscal challenges that's also experienced. So it's this balance in terms of trying to tell them to implement KM with the current resources that they have, that they understand the value of implementing KM. It's very difficult, but very necessary.
Thanks, Jodine. Lillian, proceed.
Thank you very much, Jodine, for the presentation. I think some of the issues that I was going to raise, you've already addressed them in some of the responses that you have given. I think I wanted to understand from the manner in which you have pitched this new revised, toolkit. How do you anticipate it to be adopted, So meaning when I then get this toolkit, and most probably I'm not a KM professional, how would you want me to, the steps that you would want me to undertake to use it, in what platforms, so that there's more relevance for it? I hope my question makes sense, sir.
Thanks, Lillian, for the question. I think we are trying to be careful with the launch of the toolkit so that we launch it at a platform where the decision makers also get to understand this, right? We often leave them behind also in the process. So when we focus on KM things, it's KM. So that is the first thing. We want the municipal leadership to be aware of the toolkit firstly, and then for them to also understand how they can use it. But secondly, in terms of if you are a municipal practitioner and you want to start using the toolkit, that is your question, right? It's Thursday, it's also lunch.
Yeah.
I think we have developed the toolkit in such a way that these sections build on one another. So the first section deals with the fundamentals, the foundation, understanding KM, basic definitions, not theoretical, practical definitions, understanding how it relates to your municipal environment, understanding, making examples in terms of data, information, and knowledge in a municipal context. So we have deliberately developed the toolkit to build it from foundation to then the next step. You are now building you need to build a plan of using your municipal data to motivate for a KM function. Where do you start? Then it will give you steps. This is what you need to consider. So the toolkit, if you read it from section 1 to section 4, it builds on that. It builds on every section, builds on the other. So if I were a practitioner or a record management official that has just been given a KM function, the toolkit would enable me to start implementing KM if I follow it from section 1 to section 4. But there's a section in the toolkit that also speaks to partners, identifying, and there we also list a few partners that you can contact if you want certain things or you want support in certain areas. And I think that is also important. The toolkit is not the end in itself. We cannot give this toolkit to the municipalities and say good luck and well done. We need to also create awareness around it, create opportunities for engagement around it, discuss the implementation with municipalities. But as SALGA, we also have a responsibility to check in again with municipalities to say whether this toolkit hits the spot. But I think as a partner such as the HSRC, they can come on board and see what other resources and support they can provide municipalities in support of implementing this toolkit. There are 257 municipalities and 1 KM unit, and SALGA with 3 people, so we also rely on our partners to assist us in this process.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that relates nicely to what Polan is asking again in terms of now with the launch of the updated toolkit. He's asking about the training delivery model that's used, whether it's e-learning, micro-learning elements, or is it a structure-led, or do you train the trainer? You've spoken quite a bit about the suggesting that municipalities partner with each other. But then I want to just change it a bit, Kulani, if you allow me. The awareness drives or roadshows that will happen around this toolkit. What is the format or the structure that it takes on? Is it just letting people know about like what you've done today, what has changed in the toolkit, or is it also having those workshops or having those training sessions? Because of some municipalities, they won't be able. Not every municipality is going to find a partner. The metros are not going to go out of their way to go to the rural municipalities and say, let's partner up on this toolkit, especially if you look at where all these metros are concentrated. What then does this team of 3 in Salga then do?
Okay, so we are planning on hosting a various Salga information and knowledge exchange sessions in the different provinces with the idea of firstly promoting the toolkit so that municipalities are aware of it. We see, I think one of the biggest lessons was when the City of Cape Town, a colleague indicated he wasn't aware of the 2018, and we thought everyone was aware of the toolkit. So firstly, creating the awareness around the toolkit, but also going into the details, going into each section of the toolkit. There's also, I've mentioned, a capacity building initiative that's forthcoming. And the idea is that the content of this toolkit is going to be used for this capacity building initiative directed towards municipalities. So the content of the toolkit will then be offered through those training or capacity building initiatives that will be rolled out to all municipalities.
Yeah. And then the question that I had earlier, I'm just thinking about now, like, so around just knowledge management, implementation of knowledge management across government entities. What is the relationship between yourself, Salga, the DPSA, and POCTA, especially around the directive that the DPSA issued last year, April, and they indicated that they will then be doing I think they said an assessment. Yeah, they will be monitoring implementation progress 12 months after the approval. And we're now almost 1.5 years since that directive was issued. What is the working relationship between yourselves and the other 2 entities to make sure that KM is not rushed, or the implementation of KM is not rushed, that it not being a tick box exercise, that the municipalities are not just saying, okay, yes, we have a policy and we have a team, but how, what is the relationship across these 3 entities to make sure that this is done right, and that we don't wake up in 5 months or 10, not 5 months, 5 years or 10 years, and we find that it wasn't adequately implemented?
Thanks. I think one of the mechanisms that we try and ensure alignment is the knowledge sharing program and the KMRG, Knowledge Management and Research Reference Group, KMRG. And so this forum, it's constituted of COCTA, Salga, and then different departments, DPME, DPSA, and various other entities. And the intention of this forum is for us to align our efforts in terms of KM. So so that we don't duplicate effort, but that we streamline resources and that we are on the same page. So we are working very closely with COCTA on a number of initiatives. But in terms of the directive, as DPSA's directive is to provincial departments, you know, and for local government, we need to make sure that we enable them or enable municipalities to be prepared for the KM storm that's coming. So last week we were at a ICMA Global Exchange and Talent Management Seminar, and I was engaging with a few directors of corporate services from KZN, and they understand the importance of KM, but I think also they are waiting for some instructions or directives, you know, specifically in that area, and I think that's something that we need to work on with COCTA. And if it's not a directive, then we need to find some way of encouraging municipalities to implement KM. We've done that, we've had initiatives, but we must think of something more, something with more, I don't know, I don't want to say force, you know, because we need to protect the interest of our member municipalities, but we need to come up with a position and share that with municipalities so that we give them direction in terms of how KM must be implemented. The DPSA directive is there, and we've ensured that our toolkit also aligns with that. We don't want to we are headed in the same direction. We also, as I've indicated to you, we engage with the colleagues. There's constant engagement and communication with these various sector departments in terms of ensuring that we are all aligned when it comes to KM for the sector.
Awesome. And then just a last one, more of a comment. I think the work, because I was, while you were speaking and going through the structure of each of the chapters, for me, the change that was made there compared to the last one is significant, because it reads a lot better. It's easier to, like you were saying, it's easier to follow in terms of where you start off and how you then progress through this implementation of KM. So it'll be a good read once this second edition does come out, and I think we all will be encouraged to read it and see what we can take from there. And like Rita was saying, that it is reusable. And there's no argument about that. That this is a reusable toolkit, and I know that as Knowledge Management South Africa, we then have that responsibility to then also drive the message about KM implementation, both private and public. And I know that as a board, we've given ourselves that directive to support what SALGA is doing in this case, what SALGA is doing with the toolkit. And yeah, we'll offer our assistance where we can, and then play our role in driving the culture. You've like you mentioned in your bio, and your interest driving the culture of knowledge sharing, especially when you look at the national strategic framework. So yeah, there's a lot to do, but like you're saying, it's a not all storms are bad storms, and yeah. So yeah, I don't see any other questions or comments from the colleagues that have joined. But Jadid, is anything else that you want to share or say in closing? The platform is yours.
Thank you for the platform to talk about the toolkit. As I've indicated, it's the first platform since the toolkit has been finalized. We've received the final product, so we're very excited. But we're very excited about the interest that is being showed in this toolkit. I think it's a good indication that we are moving in the right direction. I think another thing is as I've indicated, there are things that we could not cover as part of this toolkit. And if you see them or any one of the colleagues that's in attendance or when you engage with it and you identify a critical gap, let's engage with us. Let's see how we can develop something to augment this toolkit, and so that we build on this thing and produce resources that would assist the municipalities at the end of the day to implement KM. That's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jodine. Virtual round of applause from everybody. I'll do it on camera one. Thank you very much. We do look forward to the launch of the toolkit. And yeah, knowing our community, there will be input from KMSA on the toolkit. Yeah, the session, everyone, thanks for joining. The session has been recorded. It will be shared in due course. And if you haven't had your lunch yet, or if you're planning to have lunch in the next few minutes, enjoy your lunch, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for joining. Bye.